So this is Scott. I'm on Icon strategy team. I'm also co-founder of ICX Station. We focus specifically on building utility for the Icon blockchain. And I'm co-founder of Balanced, which is the first DeFi product to be built on Icon.
Hello, everybody. Thank you for tuning in to What the Fi is DeFi. This is our third event within the REIMAGINE series of conferences that we've been putting on over the last few months. If you missed out on our first two events, feel free to visit the REIMAGINE 2020 website at ri2020.io for full access to over 100 interviews from some of your favorite projects and individuals in the space. You know, our main goal is to talk with the top projects and leaders in our industry to shed light and help us understand blockchain's real impact and innovation, right? Advancements towards Web 3.0 and decentralized infrastructure of our future. Without further ado, we have a very special guest in the house, a friend of ours, Scott, from ICX Station, to discuss with us Balanced, that he's a co-founder on, building on the Icon network. First of all, hello, Scott. How are you doing today?
Yep, good to see you, Adam. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, first, I just want to thank you for joining us again here today, taking time out of your day to kind of speak on, you know, what you've been working on over at Icon. Super excited to hear your thoughts and share your insights, again, not only in crypto, but more importantly about balance and kind of the DeFi space. So before we get into it, we have a lot of viewers right now globally really kind of tuning into these series of conferences that we're putting on, and they may not have heard you. So can you shed a little bit of light or you know, a little bit of background, not too far back, but what you've currently been working on and how you maybe got into the space? Give us a few minutes on that.
Sure, yeah. So I first got into the blockchain cryptocurrency space in early 2017. You know, downloaded Coinbase, was like, what the hell is Ethereum? What's the difference between a Bitcoin and a Litecoin? And like, really wanted to figure out like actually what I was buying before I bought it. So I started doing my own research, and then, you know, later in 2017, I met the founder of Icon, Min Kim, at a conference. And, you know, after a number of phone calls, he convinced me to quit my banking job and come join him in this exciting cryptocurrency space. So I was one of the first hires in April 2018 for the San Francisco office.
Wow.
And then shortly afterwards, with another one of my coworkers, Dakey Lee, we co-founded ICX Station. And ICX Station is, you know, focused a lot on use case for the Icon ecosystem. And as we were doing research, we found that DeFi is a really important use case for blockchain, or for public cryptocurrencies and blockchain technology. And we wanted to bring that to the Icon ecosystem. So I've launched Balanced, and Dakey's cooking something up as well.
Awesome. No, I like to hear that. How were those first discussions, man, with Min back in 2018, as you say? Like, were those pretty eye-opening? That was the first time you actually heard of it and then just came across him and then got into Icon, or how'd that go?
Yeah, so I guess, you know, honestly speaking, I was at a conference, I was looking for a career switch, and I was looking through like the speakers, and I was like, all right, who is this guy? Min Kim, he's ex-Deutsche Bank. I currently work at Deutsche Bank. This is a great networking opportunity. I'm gonna hunt this guy down. I'm gonna hit him up on LinkedIn. I'm gonna get the conversation going. So I was definitely interested in the Icon project because of interoperability and their play in Korea. But what I was really looking for from day one was, you know, an opportunity to jump into the cryptocurrency space and, you know, really turn this hobby into a career.
No, I think that's very important to kind of understand, right? We have a lot of students tuning in, right? We're partnered. You're one of our partners on the university front, and there's a lot of students again looking, you know, how did we all stumble into crypto? Like, what was the background? And I come from banking as well, so do you. And it's just very interesting, kind of the journey that everybody's taken. And it's good to hear that you seeked it out, right? Very proactive, like try to find some common ground, right? To kind of get into the space. And you'll notice across the whole industry too, like a lot of people come from various backgrounds of like big tech, banking, supply chain. So for all of our listeners, you know, tuning in, I think it's good to hear from your perspective of like what you did to get involved, because some people, you know, have been in computer science for quite some time or understanding distributed systems and like how everything works. And then there's like the other half that are just looking for another opportunity. And there's this new wave of students coming into the space now, kind of curious, right, and a driving interest. And I hope the discussion we have today continues that curiosity, and feel free to reach out to anybody in the space. And that's what I did too. Look up who's speaking.
Yeah,
Who's
look me up. Look me up. Hit me up. I'd be happy to talk blockchain with anyone interested for sure.
I see Scott all day on Telegram with the community engaged. It makes me even tired, reading up on a lot of these messages. But we'll save that for another day. This whole event is focused on DeFi. DeFi has kind of been around a little bit, right, in the sense of, I know stable coins kind of launched in early 2018. I know we were looking at a few. A lot of the infrastructure plays were being developed. Icon, had been around developing their own stuff. So here we are, fast forward to 2020. Well, first of all, in 2017, this ICO craze kicked off, kind of the bear market, winter. And then here we are in 2020 in a pandemic. And it seems like crypto's back. DeFi's picking up. There's a lot of projects in the space. And the whole goal of this conversation is balance, right? So before we get into balance, I think this is a good way to kind of give some more insight into what DeFi is. But what's your recent take on kind of the current DeFi landscape? Obviously, you co-founded Balanced, so you've been looking at this obviously for quite some time. But what's your take on the last few months? $1 billion plus, depending on the day, right? Has been locked up, and you're seeing a lot of this activity and momentum. From your perspective and experience, like, what do you take from all this?
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely a lot going on, but overall, I'd say I'm really impressed and really excited at the direction that DeFi is going. I'd say, like, when I first learned about blockchain and cryptocurrency, what really fascinated me was the use of smart contracts in finance. And, being an ex-banker at the time, I had thought to myself, like, this is going to change my work. This is going to change my industry. And now I'm really seeing it happen, like in production, which is really exciting. It's not just white papers and ideas, but at the same time, with innovation still comes scams.
Scott, yeah. So what's your recent take on DeFi, right? There's been this big boom. There's a bunch of money being poured in. It seems like the projects are coming out left and right. You've obviously been focused on this project too, which we'll get into. What's your take on what's been going on?
Yeah, I mean, I'm definitely really excited to see the innovation that's happening. And I think we've clearly seen product market fit with, as you mentioned, there's so much value being locked up in these products. And for me, when I first became interested in public blockchain and cryptocurrencies, this was something that really excited me is programmable money. It's using smart contracts to interact with other smart contracts and really disintermediating the middle office of a bank. And to me, this is like, we're seeing a lot of great innovation in that regard, and it's really exciting. But at the same time, with all this innovation, obviously, we see scams as well. We see, anonymous teams and unaudited smart contracts, and you definitely have to be careful. This is definitely another case of do your own research on the projects that you're trusting with your money. But overall, I think it's great to see all the experimentation and innovation and iteration that's happening out there.
Yeah, definitely. And you kind of just touched on a little bit, which was my next question on the perception. At first, right, in 2017, the ICO craze, it was an investment vehicle to kind of raise some capital quicker, more efficient. You're handing out tokens. There were some solid projects, obviously. And then there were some kind of, not so good bad apples, like not delivering on product, on their promises of, scams and all. And that was the narrative then. Do you think the perception now, as you just mentioned, you think the good's outweighing some of those bads, and the industry is more mature in 2020 than it was obviously at that point, to kind of negate some of those scams? Do your own research, of course, your own due diligence, and make sure. But do you think the perception has an effect like it did in 27, with regulatory kind of compliance issues and all that? Because there's a lot of good projects right now, but there are some bad apples. Is a perception have an effect on the growth of where we're at today?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not going to say that, all the meme coins and food flavored coins are really helping our industry. And then the fact that like some of them actually ended up being quite nefarious didn't really help us out. But, I still think the good certainly outweighs the bad. And just like we had in 2017, there'll be a lot of good projects that come out of this. And I still think, yield farming is a genius token distribution mechanism. And, I think there's a lot of good coming out of this, but certainly be careful. And you can look out for a lot of the same warning signs. I mean, the good DeFi projects, they have current functioning working products, and then they introduce a token, or the token is introduced day one with a working product. Take a look at what you're farming. Is this a working product, or is this a place for me to deposit my money and then earn a new token, and there's really nothing else from there? And maybe something else will be developed, maybe not. Am I relying directly on some anonymous individual to create value for this product, or is this already working, already decentralized? Like, these are the warning signs to look out for, and what separates good projects from bad projects.
No, you're totally right. And I've had these conversations, the past two events that you guys were involved with, and that was one of them. In terms of now the market has changed in a way where there are products now, right? Users, community, to build off of, as opposed to, let me grab some money and then I'll build it later. Build and they will come, right? Like, that doesn't really quite translate so much, as we know now, right? There's a lot of these issues and challenges from getting scammed and people losing money. But you do bring up a good point where the market is more mature. As you said, look at the founders, look at the product, the community, who's out there, who's behind it, who's backing it. And even in that short due diligence, will shed some light on, should you go in or not. And how do you see the DeFi space creating value for crypto in general? And we're going to get into Balanced and how that creates value in itself and its community. How do you see kind of the current landscape creating value for the industry in terms of driving like adoption, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think, what we're really missing here is user experience. I mean, the value is there. If I compare what I get in my savings account in terms of yield to what you can get farming these different assets, or even just depositing in something like, Aave or Compound, these fairly reputable projects, the value is there. We just need to get the user experience and comfortability there. I was talking to my dad, like, hey, if there was an anonymous team and you were earning like 5,000% interest and there was no insurance, would you deposit even like a small amount of your savings account? Absolutely not, was his answer. Like, we have a level of comfortability, or at least, some of us do, with an understanding of smart contracts, but you never heard of a smart contract. You don't know what the hell blockchain technology is, and they're promising you ridiculous yields, but you don't know the team. Is this audited? Is there any sort of insurance? I think, like, what we're building right now is a foundation, and a foundation that does have genuine value. And as we enhance user experience and as we enhance comfortability with the products, this is going to be a direct path to adoption, in my opinion. And I'm very bullish on DeFi overall.
Yeah, and so I think kind of to piggyback off of that, these are the Legos, right? Kind of the infrastructure play and the foundational applications and dApps, the building blocks that we can leverage, especially for Icon, right? I mean, that's a massive network, lots of users, global presence. And do you think this kind of goes into the emerging markets as well? I know there's probably going to be some time before, like you said, it's a little bit more mainstream on the user front, but does DeFi kind of tap into those unbanked regions globally?
Yeah, I mean, I want to say yes, but I also don't want to pretend that I know what the unbanked have to go through and how helpful this actually is to them. But, at the same time, yes, I could see value in the fact that I can earn income and I could do it passively without having a bank account, without having to deal with a third party. I could do this all with my own research. I'm not sure what the fiat on-ramps look like in those parts of the world, but I do assume that, once you're in the blockchain ecosystem, that accruing value and earning income could be done in a more seamless way.
For sure. And you touched on this just a couple minutes ago about yield farming, right? Some people are still learning about it. A lot of people are in it. Is that kind of like the new way of fundraising mechanism? Is that a vehicle? Is it sustainable with the APYs? Kind of the backdrop of yield farming is it's kind of like a saving account and kind of leveraging all of the products out there to earn for those watching, right? To kind of earn more interest on your capital, whether it's just like a savings account. But should we be worried or a little bit concerned on if it's a bootstrapping kind of thing like the ICO in 2017?
Yeah, I guess I want to take a step back from like actually the yield side of things, and think about just yield farming or farming in general as a token distribution mechanism. And it doesn't even need to be applied to DeFi necessarily, but I think what it does is it creates a much more focused and targeted community versus something like an ICO. When you do an ICO, like your initial token holders are people who want to sell your token for a higher price. I mean, these are investors. This is some of them are getting paid to do this, to invest in things and then sell them at a higher price. Some of them are doing it personally. But the point is when you do an ICO, you're creating a community of investors, and that's not necessarily what's most beneficial to your project. So when you do something like a token farm to distribute your tokens, I think you can create a lot more targeted and focused community, which can be much more beneficial in bootstrapping that passionate and driven, grassroots community. And I think like a good example would be like, not let's abstract away DeFi here and think about if I was launching like a gaming DApp, some sort of blockchain video game DApp on Ethereum. When I was distributing my tokens, instead of doing an ICO where I'm getting mostly investors and moon boys, what I can do is say that people who have mana tokens and people who have engine coin, you can deposit them in this contract and you'll earn, over the course of time, you'll earn whatever my gaming coin is. And from the start that if they're investors, at least they're interested in blockchain gaming. They're not doing it just for a quick flip. These are people who have held engine coins and mana, which are, blockchain video game stock, focused coins on Ethereum. So you're creating that targeted community from the start. And I think we're even seeing that, you saw that with YAM as well. People interested in DeFi, so they chose to distribute the initial. So they chose to distribute the initial coins to people who are holding DeFi governance kind of coins. So I think it's just a good way to create like a targeted community.
Yeah, no, definitely, and you kind of creating that utility, right? That utility of the token, utility of the ecosystem, driving engagement, as opposed to investing and going for the pop, which doesn't engage or entice your community to use the product or use
exactly.
Kind of, right?
Not getting users necessarily.
Exactly, and I think that was an issue for a fact, in the past. And a lot of over the past few years, obviously the teams like yourself, like on the Icon side, have obviously executed really well to drive user engagement and have a positive impact and not kind of fizzle off, which is great. Now, these are all great insights. I appreciate that. Which now I do want to go into Balanced, right? And this is a DeFi product that you co-founded and building on top of Icon. What is Balanced and what's the purpose of Balanced?
So I think for those who are maybe more familiar with the Ethereum the Ethereum DeFi ecosystem, you can take a look at MakerDAO and Synthetics, and I'd say we drew a lot of inspiration from there and have our own special sauce as well. But yeah, so MakerDAO or so Balanced allows people to deposit ICX and borrow against it. And what you're doing when you borrow against it is you're minting. We're going to start off with just Icon dollars, which is a token pegged to $1, but the plan, as I said, it has a little bit of synthetics involved, is to add other types of assets as well. So we'll start off with Icon dollars, let the platform be stable, and then token holders, Balanced token holders, will be able to vote on adding new assets. Me personally, I'm thinking things about, maybe a gold pegged asset, maybe something pegged to equities. When it comes down to it, we want to create assets that people will be interested in shorting. Because when you deposit ICX and you borrow against it, then you're short the asset that you borrowed. So I think this could create an interesting DeFi ecosystem on Icon. And really, the reason I went with this direction is because Balanced provides the foundation to build a lot of other products on top of it. So I'm hoping we inspire some DeFi developers as well.
Awesome. And I think you packed in a punch there for the discussion here. But just to even go back on what you just mentioned, what were the initial goals and kind of objectives? I mean, I think obviously you've been researching this and been working on it for quite some time. What were the initial goals and objectives? And you touched on some of the things, but I kind of want to extract that a little bit out of, how does this, and we just touched on it too, as far as developing a community. How does adding this product on Icon, how does this product benefit Icon and then benefit the Balanced users, I guess, or maybe the Icon community? What were the goals and objectives to establishing this product?
Yeah, I mean, let's just start with Icon specifically. So I'll say that I went to DevCon Osaka, and I saw how much the Ethereum ecosystem was pumping their DeFi products. And I saw how successful they were in other parts of the world. And I realized that DeFi is not going to be a Ethereum only use case. That if you want to be a successful public blockchain platform, that you're going to need some sort of foundational level DeFi products to support your token holders, because having leverage and being able to put your tokens to work is absolutely essential to encourage people to continue holding your asset. You know, you see how much Ethereum is locked into the MakerDAO contracts. I'm definitely hoping that Balanced even exceeds that for ICX. And what it comes down to is I, of course, want to add value to ICX. And I do believe that, you know, as more people use this, they'll be able to put their ICX to work and capture value from it without actually having to sell it. So I'm hoping to get, you know, a lot of ICX locked up into Balance. That's been my goal from the start.
Exactly, and I think that's what would you consider that a closed loop kind of situation where, you know, you have token holders putting it back into the ecosystem, incentivized by, you know, driving some yield and earning on, you know, by being a holder, at the same time having access to other later down the road other digital, you know, tokenization assets and digital assets. So would you consider that kind of like a closed loop circuit to keep everybody in the Icon network?
I wouldn't say necessarily that what we're trying to do is keep everyone in the Icon network, but what we do want is for people within the Icon network, we want them to have the opportunity to make money and to put their ICX to work to earn them more money. So if being an ICX holder means that you have great opportunities to grab some net interest margin by borrowing cheap on Icon and then lending expensive on Ethereum, that makes me happy. You know, what we want is to bring value to ICX holders, and that's been the goal from the start.
Awesome. So it's like market access, permissionless, decentralized, you know, type of involvement. And I think Icon is you know, further along than many of the other projects in the space that I've been in the past. What are some of the other teams like weren't too successful in their communities? And we're not here to like, you know, talk about other kind of DeFi products, but I mean, I think, could you say like the Icon community is rather strong, because you would need a strong community to drive a lot of these products, as opposed to some of the other networks that have been around for quite some time?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely am really excited seeing the growth of our small Balanced community. You know, we have a Telegram room, and it's becoming much more active than it was in the beginning. We're still, you know, a few months out from launch, so I do expect it to get even more active. But, you know, I have seen a lot of interest from the Icon community and a lot of passion from the Icon community for this project and for future DeFi projects. So I think we're creating like a more focused, more passionate community that's excited to use the products that are built on the network.
Exactly. No, which is great. And to kind of lead us into other questions down the road, I do want to paint a picture a little bit. You know, we just talked about ICX, right? But there's other tokens involved, and we'll get into this. Will lead into governance, you know, in a few minutes from now. But can you give us at a high level the breakdown of ICX, synthetics, ICX, ICD, and then BAL?
Oh, sure. Yeah. So the different tokens that are going to be within Balanced at launch.
Yeah, exactly, because I kind of want to paint this picture as we get into more questions down the road here. I want them to understand, you know, what we're talking about, right? We're talking about ICX holders, but now you're staking it, which is generating some other tokens, and some of these other tokens are ICD, you know, the Balanced token, the synthetics, ICX. If you could just give us a little bit of what those are, just to paint a picture as we continue discussing.
Sure. So we'll just walk through the flow from start to finish, I guess.
Exactly.
So I'm an ICX holder. You go to a Balance.network and you would deposit some ICX. And then from there, your ICX actually works its way to a staking pool. And the collateral that you actually put into Balanced is going to be what you mentioned. It's SICX, which stands for staked ICX, pretty straightforward. It's just a representation of your share of the staking pool. The reason we needed to do that is because for users to for it to make economical sense to use our product, you still need to be getting staking returns. But at the same time, staked ICX has it's frozen, it's locked, it's a liquid, so we wouldn't be able to liquidate it when necessary. So the first step to create this product, we needed a staking pool on Icon, and then to create a representation of your ownership of that staking pool. So you deposit ICX, you get SICX, SICX goes directly into the balanced collateral pool, and then you can borrow against it. So, let's just say we're going to do a 5x collateralized loan. You would deposit $500 worth of SICX, and then you can borrow up to 100 Icon dollars, which is a token pegged to the value of $1.
Is that a stable coin?
Yeah, that's going to be a stable coin. Yeah, exactly. So that's the first product we're doing on Balanced is a dollar peg stable coin backed by the ICX reserves of everyone who's deposited.
And what's kind of like the granular decision or thought process of pegging it to fiat?
Yeah, I mean, I think you want to be able to pay people, right? Like within the Icon ecosystem, we have a lot of developer shops. I've worked with a lot of software development firms, and paying each other in ICX, and then coming up like, oh, it's based on the price at coin market cap at this time, and it's super volatile. We're in a volatile industry, and it makes a lot more sense to also then I get to hold on to my ICX because I'm taking out a loan against it. So instead of paying someone in ICX, I'll just deposit some ICX into Balanced. I'll borrow some Icon dollars, and then I'll pay people in Icon dollars. So that's like an immediate use case of Icon dollars right there. I'm just paying like within the Icon ecosystem.
But what's the decision on pegging it to like fiat?
Pegging it to fiat? Yeah, I mean, it makes it more viable.
Sorry, because I think there's various kind of mechanisms out there. And this is just my own personal kind of curiosity of having a basket of crypto or a dollar or a commodity. What was your decision to kind of peg it to the dollar, I guess?
Yeah, I think like the dollars or the stable coins that are pegged to the dollar are just like the most popular right now, and provides the most value to people in terms of like how they think about prices and how they think about what they should charge. But so I think like the dollar pegged currency and the dollar pegged stable coin to start was kind of just trying to meet like what most people would find useful in terms of a payment coin. But I also think euros could be pretty popular. It ends up depending on what the Balanced token holders what their makeup is. If we end up having like a ton of the entire community is European, I imagine they'll want to add Icon euros as the next asset. And it's relatively, the way we're designing it, it's going to be relatively easy to add more assets. So I felt like starting with a dollar was just the easy first choice.
Nice. And I wanted to bring, so that was the dollar. And then did you talk about the Balance token yet?
No, not yet. So just continuing back on the user flow. Somebody deposits ICX, that gets turned into SICX, goes into Balanced, they borrow Icon dollars, and then from there, if you maintain a certain collateralization ratio of above 500%, we want all of our borrowers to be keeping a really safe margin. So that's why we incentivize this. And then once you're at that ratio, you'll be earning Balance tokens. Now, Balance tokens have essentially own the entire product. We're going to be as decentralized as possible. They have ownership over the product and the fees generated by Balanced, so they can make directional choices, and they also have the right to the fees generated by the platform. So if you stake your Balanced tokens and you're currently a user, we're trying to limit this as much as possible to active users. So you have to have Balanced tokens, they need to be staked, and you need to be using Balanced. And then you'll have the right to the fees generated by the platform. You'll be able to participate in governance, and you'll also be able to delegate with the staking pool.
Nice. And what's kind of the demand on the decentralized front as far as even to the degree? I know there's various projects, right, that on a scale of 1 to 5, right, 5 being the most decentralized, like maybe BZX or something, and then kind of not so much on the spectrum, like I don't know, Dharma or something like that. Is there, from your experience in perspectives and in dealing with a lot of the community, is there a real drive for like completely being decentralized? And where do you guys kind of fall on that spectrum, or where would you like to be?
Decentralization, I would say, has benefits to both the users and the founders of the platform themselves. Because when it comes to creating a passionate community, I think having a lot of like governance power and control from the start definitely helps create that passionate community. And then from the founder's perspective, obviously, having less control opens you up. This really is a decentralized project. I mean, I would argue confidently that nothing that we're working on violates any sort of regulations or anything like that.
And what do you say to those critics that talk about like the scaling issues or organizing a lot of these voters, right? As you mentioned, everybody has a stake in it. You would assume they care, they obviously want to be involved in that voting and kind of approving things, kind of how the Balanced DAO like continues on or whatever. Rights. How do you like keep them pretty engaged, I guess? Obviously, they're there they believe in the product, they believe in kind of ICX, they believe in the whole thing. But it seems like there's a lot of critics out there that say like it's definitely like a different mindset where you can't just assume everybody is going to be actively involved. Have you thought about that, or is it kind of a I don't know, 2020? Like, is it just kind of the way that we operate now in 2020, and it's going to take a lot of influence, 5 years down the road, 10 years down the road for a lot of these people to really participate? I guess I'm just curious to know how you scale the decision-making process, because everything you're saying makes sense and it's already kind of working. But as this thing grows, how do you maintain that active involvement?
Yeah, I mean, I would say this is like kind of an active area of experimentation that we're seeing. I think like there's some merits to delegation. Icon is a DPoS network. So we see like, theoretically, because it's DPoS, you see a lot of involvement from token holders, but it's because their voting rights have really gone to like kind of a concentrated group of people. So that type of model has its ups and downs. And I think what people are starting to experiment with and what Balanced will be experimenting with is the idea that you must be a user to participate in governance. So it's not just Balanced tokens. It's not just staked Balanced tokens. It's staked Balanced tokens that currently have an open position on Balanced that get to govern the platform, that get the earnings of the platform. And to me, I'm hoping to see this be a very active group of people. I mean, considering they have an open position, they should at least be managing that. So they should be checking back into the website often and checking back into governance decisions. So what I'm really trying to create is a platform governed by its users.
Awesome. Yeah, and I kind of, for those out there kind of understanding even kind of this breakdown of allocation of rewards, 40%, and correct me if I'm wrong on some of this stuff, 40% of borrowers above the ratio receive rewards, 30% continued operations on maintenance, right? 10% for providing liquidity on the DEX at some point. The DEX is a product later down the road. Is that correct?
We're going to launch with our own DEX as well. It's going to be an order book style DEX because an AMM didn't fit some of our needs.
Cool. And can you elaborate on that just a little bit?
Yeah, sure. So, part of the Balanced product is going to be, it's not just a place to originate assets pegged or tokens pegged to the value of real world assets, but you can also trade them on our DEX. And there's fees on the DEX. So part of the upside for Balanced token holders is the volume of the DEX. And then one of the most important pairs, as you can kind of see, you were looking at the white paper, we're putting a heavy incentive in terms of daily inflation allocation to people trading on the SICX to ICX pair. And that pair, we need to give the people who are arbitraging on our network, or anyone who's holding the SICX, their representation of the staking pool, they're going to want to be able to get back into actual ICX, pay transaction fees and what have you. So we need that to be a deep pair. So, there's a heavy incentive using Balanced token inflation to provide liquidity on that pair.
Nice. And it makes sense, right? You got to kind of drive drive that liquidity stuff and incentivize. And this whole, as we all know, in blockchain crypto, it's all game theory and incentivization and community driven. So we got to do as much as we can on that front. And going back to kind of like the coordination in scaling of that was my question, and you answered it, which is a lot of engagement, a lot of active users that are benefiting from being involved, right? And that I think that can help with the scaling and the coordination of keeping them involved and stuff like that. So appreciate that. And so I want to touch on some of the other features. We talked about Maker and Synthetics, and there's other DeFi products in the industry. What kind of separates you? There's a couple features that we can touch on. One of them is kind of the liquidity mechanism, and maybe we can touch on that because I think that's a very critical component of what you guys are doing and kind of an advantage or something that can have a truly positive effect for a lot. So if you want to break that down a little bit of kind of the mechanism for Balanced for Balanced.
So I'm going to talk about just really what I was thinking about is how the assets that are pegged or tokens that are pegged to the value of real world assets, how they actually maintain their peg. And, when I was researching other DeFi projects in the early stages of Balanced, every time I was doing my research, one of the first things I wanted to know is how do they maintain their peg? And sometimes that was fairly hard to find, believe it or not. So I wanted a simple, straightforward mechanism that maintains the peg of all of our assets. If icon dollars are ever trading below $1, then people can submit them to Balanced to burn the icon dollars and get $1 worth of collateral, which is minus a small fee. So what that does is if there's ever a break in the peg on the low direction, people, if I buy 100 icon dollars for 80 cents on the dollar, I can trade them in directly with Balanced against the collateral pool for $100 worth of collateral. So I don't expect the peg of our assets to ever drop below their actual value.
Nice. And to touch on something else too, and you mentioned about being as decentralized as possible and kind of the benefits of that. Because I think a lot of people underestimate some of the control that these other not control, but the opportunities to control some of these other projects are greater than what you think. And how can you relate the Balance token to the Maker token on that front? Regarding like deposits could potentially being frozen, some of that mechanism. Do you know what I'm talking about?
I'm actually not exactly familiar with what you're talking about in terms of deposits being frozen, but I could still make the comparison.
Having to do with like admins being built into the contract, for instance, like Compound. If you deposit a lot of liquidity in Compound and they need to be whitelisted, don't you guys prevent kind of those drawbacks a little bit?
Yeah, I mean, we don't have those types of controls in place. I wasn't aware of that, to be honest. But another thing that I find pretty exciting about our governance model is we have the concept of balanced worker tokens, which, we just announced this like a few days ago. So
I just saw that. Yeah, I just saw that.
Yeah, so balanced worker tokens are entitled to 20% of the daily balance token inflation. And essentially that's like the payment to people currently working on the project. So the initial balanced worker tokens will be split evenly amongst the teams that are working on the project. But let's say, at some point in the future, people feel like I'm really not pulling my weight or I'm too focused on other projects. The balance token holders themselves actually have the ability to transfer BWT, balance worker tokens out of the wallet of the workers, essentially firing somebody. So the balance token holders have the ability to hire and fire people from the DAO directly. If they feel that people aren't pulling their weight or doing a good job, they can pull some or all of their balance worker tokens from different wallets and reallocate them how they see fit.
Wow, that's kind of interesting. And I just saw that. I just saw that post the other day about that. Where did this idea come from?
Just kind of, I don't know, just kind of thinking about different ways to give token holders control of the platform, different ways to handle, a team allocation, because we saw some issues with how team allocations were done in kind of these anonymous projects where the team allocation gets dumped on the market, and there's nothing you can really do about it. So the balanced worker token, there's no pre-mine for the team or anything. It pretty much dictates like what, while it's the daily inflation that's meant to incentivize people to work on the project, where is that going to go? Who has control over it? And in the end, token holders who are governing the DAO should have the choice of who's getting paid to work on the project.
Yeah, definitely. And do you think at some point, right now we over collateralize to kind of manage that risk? Do you think at some point there will be a mechanism where it's more reputation, similar to like a credit score?
Yeah, I do think, when you combine decentralized identity with DeFi products, I think it's going to take quite some time to get there. We're talking like years, I'd say, before we can get some sort of on-chain reputation score that people actually care about that could affect their real life. Right now, like if I have an on-chain reputation score and I mess it up and I, borrow 100 grand and don't pay it back, like I'd say that's still going to be a net positive for me. Okay, I can't use other Ethereum DeFi projects. I'll just go to another network or something. So, I think like we have a long ways to go, but I'd say we're building the foundation to make that possible.
And how about some of these other platforms have issues with congestion, right? Like depositing and kind of liquidating some of that stuff, or in the events, in those events, having congestion on the network. Have you guys taken that into consideration and factored that into kind of the whole mechanism here?
Yeah, so like I think our liquidation mechanism would never suffer from that, even if there was congestion, even if it was going a bit slow, because it's kind of a fixed amount of like the price that you get for the collateral. It's not like a bidding process or anything. It's straightforward. You have the maximum you could get is a 10% discount, for retiring bad debt, because you're doing a service to the platform. You can get a 10% discount, but you're not going to be able to buy collateral at 10 cents on the dollar or something like that. If there happened to be a lot of congestion and good bids couldn't get through, or people were paying higher gas fees or something, like that's not just the way that the Icon network's designed and the way that Balanced is designed. Neither of those situations could occur.
And that's good to know, right? And obviously, we hear these stories of congestion in the network and kind of having issues on liquidation and getting money in and out, and stuff like that. So it's good to know that maybe those obviously don't affect the way that you've designed this whole thing. So we're kind of coming up here on a few minutes. We just touched on DeFi, like your insights and thoughts on the space, on some of the current projects. We just touched on Balance, on the governance, kind of the tokens involved, the mechanism, how everything works, and it's similar to some other DeFi projects, in this space. What's on the roadmap? You mentioned kind of the DEX coming out. What's on the roadmap, for the next 6 to 12, or let's just call it 12 months? A little bit deeper, not in the short term, but medium term. What do you guys have on the roadmap, and what kind of excites you as you guys build this thing out?
Yeah, so I'd say that we're kind of going in this phases of like more centralized to more decentralized. So I'd say, on the roadmap, we're looking at Q1 2021 to launch Balanced, early Q1, hoping to have it in audit in Q4 of this year. So hoping to have everything on testnet running smoothly by the end of this year, and then launch early next year. And then I'd say like our first big to do after Balanced launches is to kind of build all of the governance features we were just describing. So they will exist. Balanced worker tokens will exist. There's just not going to be good user experience around it necessarily. So we need to kind of, add on those features after the product launches. So that's going to be kind of our big to do going into next year.
And how do you manage hacking risks? We've heard some of these stories of these hacks for multiple times. How do you, what are you taking away from that? How are you learning from that experience? What are you guys doing to kind of make this environment a rather safe and secure environment?
Yeah, I mean, we're already talking to audit firms. So I think, being audited by a reputable firm, I think is first and foremost. And then from there, it's going to be open source development from day one, and this is going to be a pretty popular product within the Icon ecosystem. So I expect some Icon community developers to do kind of like a community audit. And then I think those are kind of the two key features to make sure we keep this safe.
Yeah,
lots
definitely.
of testing, lots of auditing. What else can you do?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I think that's pretty important. I guess, we're probably not surprised, but there are a lot of, for the viewers out there, making sure that there are audits, being done, because there are some that are not, as we've kind of seen in the media, right? Just a lot of bugs and stuff like that were not followed up, or even proactive on it. So it's good to hear that you guys are super proactive long before launch, at least in tandem and in parallel as this product gets built out. And so with that being said, what other projects are you currently following or that excites you, whether it's a project or a type of product? Meaning, I know there's flash loans out there and these other kind of, niche kind of development efforts. Is there anything that excites you? You've obviously been on the DeFi train for a little bit. What have you seen coming up, or maybe there isn't?
Yeah, I'd say what excites me most, and what I hope to see kind of built on top of Balanced and on top of the future projects that we're working on in the Icon ecosystem, is something like Finance. And I have to say, I'm just really impressed in terms of the level of programmable money that we're seeing on Finance, where they're pursuing the best yields and they're saving people money on gas costs. I mean, there's genuine value there, and to me, just purely tech speaking, like I just find the technology fascinating to be able to take in deposits and then allocate them, do a ton of different transactions, and bring it back to the user as a passive yield. And to me, it's just like really seeing smart contracts at work. It's seeing programmable money at work, and it's really seeing like what first enticed me into this industry. It's really, I get to see that becoming a reality, and I find it really exciting.
Yeah, no, totally. And you're right. Going back to the beginning of this conversation was user experience, right? Right now we're building out the governance models and the mechanisms and all of the infra. And then at some point, that's already picked up steam. There's already users and everybody's, dibbling and dabbling and kind of understanding how it operates. And I think the next step is a product like that in general, where I want to put my money here and I want it to aggregate, right? Like the yield. I want to put my money here and help me find, opportunities for that capital or crypto being allocated, right? And I think that's important for, like you mentioned, talking to your dad, or even I just set up my dad the other day with a wallet, a Bitcoin wallet. He's going to be doing like a barbecue, and so I wanted him to be able to transact. They're going to buy with Bitcoin, but that user, so it's only on a very centralized app, but the point being is how do we get them to use it, right? We're spending a lot of efforts building this thing out. The user experience will follow, and I think the future looks bright for Balanced and kind of an Icon in general moving forward, right?
Yeah, couldn't agree more.
Exactly, man. So I think we're coming up on time here. I'm going to put you on the spot real quick. For a lot of the students, watching this interview, are there any books or influences or people that you follow that maybe you can share, where they can do research or things that have shaped you kind of in the crypto scene? I know Twitter is one of them, but I'm not sure if there's individuals on Twitter that you follow or some sites and blogs that, inspire you that our listeners and watchers can figure out on their own.
Yeah, I forget the exact name of the list, but I as much as I hate to say it, I would say Twitter is a good way to stay informed. The industry moves fast, and Twitter shares news fast. There's also a lot of degenerates, and it can kind of get pretty ugly on Twitter. But I would say that following there's like a couple of like DeFi lists. You can follow a list, and it'll just share tweets of like prominent people. That's definitely something I would look into, and also just like trying to find good chat rooms on Telegram where you can kind of connect with the admins and talk to them in DM. Like that's kind of how I got started, learning from different people. When you express genuine interest, people who actually find the space fascinating, will be happy to shed some light and help educate you and point you in the right direction. So reaching out to people who seem like they might be able to help, and also paying attention on Twitter and social media to kind of the bigger names should help as well.
And where can people find more about Balance and learn about it and get connected?
Yeah, I'd say balanced.network. You got, that's our website, and it has links to our white paper, to our developer documentation. We're doing everything open source, so if you wanted to contribute, you certainly could. And then, it also has links to our Telegram room and chat rooms and things like that.
Nice. So today we have Scott Smiley from ICX Station, co-founder of ICX Station, co-founder of Balanced. Super happy to have him here. He's part of the Icon Network community. He's one of our partners on the university front, pushing a lot of initiatives there on education, development, and really kind of making a super impact in a variety of ways, as you can tell from this conversation. So last but not least, I just want to thank you, Scott, for taking time out of your day to join us here for this What the Fi is DeFi. Glad you were able to share kind of your insights and perspectives, and more importantly, discuss Balance and kind of how it differentiates. Again, go to balance.network if you want more information on the project itself. Looking to launch at the end of the year, you said?
Q1 2021, early.
Q1 2021, which is the way things are going now. Can't wait for 2021. So glad to kick it off there. Scott, stay safe out in Jersey. Stay healthy. We hope to see you back here in San Francisco at some point. But if not, we'll have Icon on for the next event. Again, thank you for taking the time out of your day.
Yep, sounds good. Thanks for having me, Adam.
All right, man.
Take it easy.